let's start talking a little bit about how you make an editor really mad. So I'm with Meissner for 11 years now. I'm editing, that is, 4 journals, 3 journals actively, and a few more journals on the editorial board. So that goes for the last 6-7 years. Whatever I tell you now about how to please an editor and how to annoy an editor is nothing about theoretical life. This is real life experience. I'll show you some real life examples. I have one more additional example probably, which I received this morning even. So my first comment here, my first statement here is when you write and submit a paper, be aware. Be aware when you submit a paper to a leading journal, which is indexed in Web of Science Q1, usually the rejection rate overall is above 90%. So for the journals that you see here, I can tell you the first one, technological forecasting and social change, we receive around 4,500 submissions per year. But we have limited space for the journal which we can accept the papers. In total, we come to 6% acceptance rate. The second journal, knowledge management, is less. It's only 2,000 submissions. The IEEE journal, it's also around 2,500 submissions which arrive. I say that with good reason. So if you submit to one journal and your paper is rejected after a while, don't be angry, don't be annoyed, don't question the competence of your own. Simply realize there is maximum 10% of papers being accepted. And here we come to a very important point. Assuming, and I understand that all your papers are high quality papers when you submit that. The content is high quality, but there are a lot of formal mistakes you can make. And given the large number of submissions editors handle each year, you might understand that the mood of the editor is not the best one to say, I'm very generous, I ignore that, I accept that. We have to be fair to all submissions. We are also always fair. It doesn't matter if the submission comes from Russia, China, United States, Austria, Switzerland. It doesn't matter. So everyone has to follow the same rules and the same standards. So let's continue here a little bit. I tell you a little bit about what you should do and what you should care about when it comes to your initial submission of your paper. You should have a clear initial abstract and a title. A title should be appealing. It should be something like which raises the interest of a reader. Before you submit the paper, just take it and show the title to a colleague of yours and ask, would you, if you see this title, would you read this paper? Remember, what do you do? How do you behave and perform when you do a literature search? You get dozens and dozens and thousands of references from Google Scholar. You don't read all of them. What you do is first you screen the headline, the title, and then you decide I might look further or not. So make sure that your title is not too technocratic, it's not too boring, but it's also not over ambitious. This is mainly, in most cases, mission impossible. If you do it on your own, ask a colleague who is not involved in writing the paper for impression, how is it perceived? But it's definitely something quite useful. Second, we come for the abstract. The abstract is the second not out criteria in the negative terms. In the abstract, there is a number of papers I desk reject immediately because these papers starts writing or saying in the abstract, we did an empirical survey including 10,000 observations, blah, blah, blah. This is nothing which you should write in your abstract. When you start writing in your abstract, how you solve the problem, who cares? That is what the paper is for. In your abstract, simply give a clear statement, why is the topic relevant, and show the rest of the community that you know what is going on. Do not use any abbreviations in the abstract. Abbreviations come later. The abstract, full words, full sentences. Second, bring and deliver a clear reason and a clear message why your paper is interesting. You might argue, we did a unique empirical approach, or we tested a unique conceptual framework, or we developed a new conceptual framework which goes beyond what other authors did earlier. Bring such an argument that makes me aware, that raises my awareness to read this paper in the end. Last but not least, already point out what are your key 2 or 3 major findings, the 2 or 3 major results. So this is again, avoid describing how you solved the problem. Don't describe the empirical work, don't describe the sample, etc., but give some idea about the findings. That keeps me as a reader interested in reading the full paper to come to the findings. So I don't want to know the way. I want to see the result. Second, during the submission, you need to write a letter to the editor. This is common standard now in most journals. And in the letter, what I experience frequently is that the authors write, we are so pleased to send a submission to this outstanding, exciting, wonderful, highly qualified journal. Oh, yeah. First, the editor knows exactly how outstanding a journal is. It's boring. Just tell us or tell me in the letter that you know about the journal. When you say, okay, I found your journal which is dealing with that and that topic, and surprise, I'm working on that topic. That's why I think that my paper fits in your journal scope. So that brings you here in the first 2 bullet points. Show it, demonstrate it. Not by saying the journal is really cool and so outstanding and you need it for your evaluation. This is a common phrase, which why should I care about your performance evaluation? I know it happens. Second, next point, give an idea that you are well aware that your paper delivers a value to the scientific community, and by means of being in the journal, but increases the visibility and the importance of the journal. Why I say that? Even the journals are assessed, evaluated every year. You know that stuff about impact factor and so on. If you look now, if you look now at the journals and the journal website, and you look at the open access fees, you will experience immediately, the higher the impact factor of a journal, the higher the fee for open access. Q1 journals charge around $3,500 in the social science, in the journals I am in, around $3,500. Q2 journals charge approximately $2,700. Q3, you might go down to $1,500 or $1,000. So the lower the impact factor, the lower the fee. It appears to me. I didn't do a statistical analysis of that. It's just my observation. So if you tell me that your paper is something absolutely new and wonderful and contributes to building the next cycle of theories, and it needs to be cited later on, so you give me a good reason to say, okay, this paper probably I will support having in the journal because it helps me maintaining my impact factor now or increasing the impact factor in the future even. So this is the job of an editor. So the editor has to also take care that the impact factor remains at that level. So you might tell me how good that all fits, but at the end, don't tell me that you're an outstanding hero and so on. You don't need to. You should be clear and aware. Usually, the editors are also visiting events, conferences, reading a lot of papers. They know how good people are. So if you start praising yourself too much, I start wondering in such cases, well, if you see a desire to tell me how good you are, you must be a poor guy. So you should have a little bit more self-understatement and say, well, I am who I am, so I don't have a desire to tell you that I'm a big star and you can learn from me. So whatever. Even worse it becomes when you say I'm the big star and the works by my colleagues from Vietnam and from Brazil is everything bad and poor. Don't criticize the others. You can do a critical review inside the paper, but not here in the cover letter. That is This is painful, really, really painful. And finally, this is also a frequent mistake. I would argue almost in 2 out of 10 cases, this is an argument for me being a bit skeptical when the corresponding author sends the cover letter and writes in the cover letter, I'm supervisor of a PhD student, and my PhD student needs this paper desperately in order to complete his or her dissertation and go for defense in half a year time. At that moment, I say, so what? You should have submitted a year earlier. Sorry, I cannot help you. I cannot help you. There are so many PhD students out in the world who are desperate for getting the papers accepted. We cannot make any exception here. If you make one exception, we have to make an exception everywhere or every time. And the arguments for evaluation, PhD students, or whatever it is, again, we are all under the same pressure. So the editor is exactly under the same pressure. Don't tell them, because then it looks a little bit like, come on, give me preferential treatment. And that's what we are not accepting. It is the same as you go on the conference, you attend and visit the media editor section. And after the media editor session, you look at the editor and say, come on, let's go for a drink. I buy a beer for you, and I take you for a meal. I pay for you. This is corruption. This is bribery. We can say, let's go for a drink and have a little fun, but no corruption here. The community is each time, all of you know it, the scientific community, everybody knows more or less. And if you start such a thing, then it's going to be a rumor which circulates in the community. And then you might be a black sheep and out pretty quickly. So this is the positive part. If we say now about how to offend the editor, initially, before the editor even starts reading the paper, it starts with the title of your paper, which might be endless long. It might cover 2, 3, 4 lines. We have such cases. So when I have to read a title, which is 3 or 4 lines, when I come to the last word, I forgot what is the first word. Make it short, but I can memorize right away immediately. Don't make me think a second time. Plus, if the title is too complicated, I wonder if it starts with such a title, very complex, complicated, difficult to read and understand, what the hell might be in the paper? If I start reading that now, will they write half a page with 1 sentence and nobody understands? So keep it short. Keep it short and deliver a message. Second, in the abstract, avoid a very unpleasant statement here. Things like, nowadays the world is changing, or currently it's raining outside, whatsoever. This wastes time, but wastes space, nobody cares. We all know that we are talking about the current situation. So describe the current situation. You are not describing something which happened 100 years ago. You present the paper which is up to date for now. So you don't need to say nowadays what's going on. This is happening so many times, and these phrases and space filling maybe around 10% of the reasons for an immediate desk check. I personally, indeed, when I read that at the beginning, I start wondering, should I continue reading or not? And in some cases, I decide I don't continue. Because it just tells me what was there already. Second, you talk too much about these technical details. What I said in the positive terms, don't do that, avoid that. Here, when I see it, I'm absolutely offended. I don't like that anymore, because I want to see that later. I want to see indeed what is the result. What is the question and what is the result? Nothing more. I want to see. And thirdly, it happens also quite frequently that you have a paper which is similar to something which colleagues prepared and published recently within the last 1 or 2, maybe 3 years in the journal. So at that moment, it's not really new any longer, and you cannot rely on editors to forget which papers and which topics they had under revision in which they happen. Despite the huge number, usually you remember a little bit about that. This is one. Second, also an issue is if you are unlucky, some editors are involved in more than one journal. So indeed, I had the case that the same paper has been submitted in parallel to 2 journals. Unfortunately for the author, it came in both cases to my desk. And I was wondering, you make a declaration that you never published anywhere before and it's not submitted anywhere else before, but you do. So then it's rejected in both cases. Make sure you follow this. So in the letter, this is exactly actually what I said earlier. Do not be too critical about the others. It's no value for you. At the same time, I had this case this morning. You have the cover letter, which I read first, and then the abstract is exactly the same text. So cover letter and abstract might be identical, plus the cover letter says sincerely yours and yours, blah, 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 blah. So if there's a plagiarism already inside, it's out. It's absolutely out. I want to see that you take the time to write at least 2 or 3 lines, personal lines, where you say, me and my colleagues are pleased to submit the paper here. It doesn't have to be long, but if I see that you are pleased to submit the paper and then you copy in the abstract, I say, shouldn't have done that. You can say 1 or 2 good reasons, it's fine. So please enter the journals too many times. No, no, no. This is something that never ever works. I would like to invite you and involve you here as well about experience you might have made about desk reject, because I have a long list of potential reasons, 20 reasons for desk reject. Before I show you my long list, I would like to ask you, which experience did you made? If you can write down, say something like 1, 2, or 3 reasons which you experienced in the chat, a little bit more, I can maybe focus a bit more on you as well and change the focus on what we have here a little bit. Desk reject means you submit the paper and the paper is not being given to reviewers, so it's not in the revision, in the review process, but the paper, the editor receives the paper and decides, I invite reviewers for the paper or not. Desk reject right from the beginning, no, it's out of scope, or technical mistakes, language is poor, it's too long, it's too short, things like that. So this is usually when you receive an information letter from the journal 1 week after submission. It's usually desk reject because the editor frequently checks the system multiple times in a week and then says, forget it, forget it, forget it. No, nothing, we don't do anything. But that's meant by desk reject. Yeah, what I see here already, the topic and the scope of the journal, indeed, this is a frequent point. Also, when you write, that's why I say in the cover letter, you should clearly state an outline why you think that the papers in the scope, okay, the scope of the journal. This is a sensitive and delicate issue because you should not tell the editor what the scope of the journal is. The editor knows that, and the editor decides. In some cases, the gray zone if it's fine or not. But indeed, the most language is poor, ideas are formulated properly. This is also a frequent issue. We see some papers, sometimes a large number of papers, which have especially a empirical parts, but they do not have any hypothesis. They do not formulate any research question. That is the point to say. So, what is that? Is it how did you come to that empirical work? So we don't give it to review. The assessment criteria, I'm just looking here. Criteria assessing data quality in sociology and psychology. Yes, this is problematic for each journal. So it's a little bit different in each journal. What I recommend here, when you refer to the criteria for assessing data quality in sociology and psychology, then is have a look in advance before you submit. Have a look who's the editor and who are the associate editors. Try to figure out which kind of works they publish, so you get an idea how they might look at your own work. That might help for overcoming such a barrier. It should actually not be a real reason to say different criteria to desk reject. It shouldn't be. But the editors are a bit different in most cases, in many cases. Poor quality figures apps. Sometimes indeed it's a good idea if you take the paper, the manuscript, and give it to another colleague who is not involved in writing the paper. Ask a colleague first, do you think it's proper in terms of formal requirements? So are the figures, can you understand the figures? Or are the figures designed and visualized in a way which is not acceptable to anyone? This is clearly not challenging you as leadership. As leadership considers itself specialized and too small sample. Yep, this is a challenge also. When you look at the scope of the journal, they might tell you in advance that we accept only papers with a large scale, with a large survey, with a large sample. Some journals say we accept empirical works, both quantitative, qualitative. This is one thing. Second, when you come and you have a small sample, you should, from the beginning on, already in the abstract and the cover letter, outline and stress that you are doing exploratory work and the results are indicative. So if you say that, it's clear that you are not aiming and not saying everything is written here is the next hype or the next theoretical concept, etc. It's nothing bad about saying I only did a small sample for some reasons, a specialized topic or whatsoever. But you need to express that case clearly already in the cover letter and in the abstract. Theoretical contributions also depends on the journal. That is what you will see in the journal scope when we outline with stress. They want to see theoretical contributions. Some journals only want to have practical implications. The majority of journals actually want to have a theoretical and a practical contribution. CRG is about English and no practical implication. Practical implication, this is a typical feature for management style journals. So we see it in many cases in management journals, especially in the Elsevier, that we are now coming and moving to a shape of a structured abstract. And a structured abstract, you have to write one paragraph about the practical implication, which might be useful for management. But it's difficult. In case of practical implications, how to formulate and write practical implications, you should have a look at the US journals, Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Review. So these are the journals, when you look at the papers written there, in scientific terms, you would argue, come on, forget it. They would never make it into a standard journal. But they have a strong focus, and they are really good and strong in formulating and wording theoretical and practical implications and meaning and the value in terms of the practical value. These journals, so MIT Sloan Review and Harvard Business Review, we have them in the library, so they are accessible. If you read one or two or three of these papers, it's a valuable learning from that part on how to write that, how to define that, and how to express that case. Okay, so I give you a few more possible reasons which are actually taken from the, and to some extent, which overlap with what you wrote here. In the first instance, this is indeed the case that some editors have a look at citations of related papers in the own journal. My strong recommendation is if an editor comes back and says he rejects the paper because you do not make reference, you don't have citations to the own journal included, that is not ethical. They should not do it. This is more or less done behind the scene. In a hidden way, we will not publicly announce them. If they do announce, address the publishing house, and they will take care. A second goes about plagiarism. For plagiarism, the most journals have a similar standard as we have it at HSE for bachelor thesis and master thesis. 20% plagiarism is okay. If it's more, we should check with the editor and with the author, where does it come from? Many journals now have an SSIN opt-in option. It means that you publish first as a working paper, and then you can convert your working paper into an article. So some journals have it, and for Elsevier we see this tendency growing. I'm not so happy with working papers being converted into journal article. So either or should be better. But make sure before you submit that in case you have a working paper published already, which is nothing in a journal, that the journal accepts that you extend and improve this working paper. Number one. Number two, it would appear the plagiarism report as something like 40%, 50 or 60%. In such a case, write in the cover letter already, the article, the manuscript I submit here has been published as a working paper and is now available in SSIN, in REPEC, or whatsoever. Number one. Number two, tell the editor clearly what is in addition, what is new in your article which you submit to the journal. So what makes your submission different from the working paper? And then it's up to the editor to decide, is that sufficient in terms of newness, or is it just a repetition and this is duplication? So we have one-to-one copy and paste. My advice here is it should be at least 50, 60% new content. And new content might be that you have the basic statistics, descriptive statistics or whatsoever in the working paper. It's all fine. And in the article, you have a long section about interpretation, which is not in the working paper. But there should be something which makes it absolutely clear that you have it, that makes it new. When we come to the topic, check the body scope and check that indeed there is at least a different title and a different abstract. The editors usually are well aware of what's going on in the community in terms of these publications. We see it often that the paper is resubmitted as a different article type. So when you submit the paper in many journals, you can choose, is it an article, is it a viewpoint, or whatever it is, different categories of submissions. So we have it that especially colleagues from some Asian countries, they think in the first instance, I submit my paper, unfortunately it's rejected, and then I take the same paper and submit it again, but not as an article, but as a viewpoint, exactly the same. So it doesn't make any sense. That makes the editor a little bit like, not this guy again. So somehow, at least in my case, I admit I have a little bit a kind of a blacklist in my mind for people with very strange behavior, including such behavior where the paper is rejected and then they take the same paper and submit it again, say to another special issue, or they call it like a viewpoint or an opinion or whatsoever. And I think, oh no, not the procedure again. So it goes right away as it comes, right away reject. English language, yes, it is a problem in some cases if the language is so poor that it's difficult to read and to understand. You need to bear in mind it's not only about the editor reading that paper. So the editor's job is actually a very bad job. So we are, as editors, we are like in a sandwich. We are right in the middle between the author and the reviewer. So if I take a paper which is poor in language terms and I give it to the reviewer are my most valuable resource. They are a scarce resource. We need reviewers to check the papers and give their opinion, and we are not paid for that. when I send a paper to them, which is hard to read and hard to understand, but at that moment they will come and say, oh my gosh, what a journal, and what do they accept? And now they are wasting my time here. That makes a bad impression on the journal from the reviewer perspective. That's why it's better probably before submitting the paper, you might take a professional language editing. In some cases, yes. Or look around among your colleagues inside institutes, the chairs, the faculties you're working. If you find a colleague where you believe, okay, this person has a good command of English and might tell me you should change it or not. We see it in some cases really that the paper has been written in a different language and the final submission is Google Translator. So Google Translator, it's obvious when it comes to translator. It goes here like the level and the contribution. So the contribution is pretty incremental or whatsoever it is. You should make clearly outline the case that you contribute to the academic discussion. And let it be only the point that you say, okay, what I present here does not contribute much to the knowledge which we have in the community, but my contribution is that I put one more piece to manifest and to manifest the feeling and the belief in a certain model. And based on that, here we come to the next research works. Well, you can do that. It's just this is no problem. But if you claim that everything is new and wonderful, outstanding, but when it's incremental, it's not a good idea. Our research question is missing, hypothesis is missing, often the case, but this is usually where we think, or I think, when I see that it's not here, that the people, the authors, didn't take the time to read the journal website, didn't take the time to read the author submission guidelines. Each journal website includes a section about guidelines for authors and submissions, and they outline the minimum requirements. And frequently, usually the requirement should be and is, there should be a research question. And the research question comes in most cases, should come in most cases, either in the introductory section or right after the literature review. It's better having that in the introduction, because after a literature review, it's already 5 pages gone after you read that. If you outline, you can outline the justification of the paper in the introduction, and then you say, and that's why the reason why I want to answer the following research question. In the next chapter, in the literature review, I will tell you that I will demonstrate and show the evidence that there is no literature available at all. Bingo, that works. That works. But a paper without a research question, my only question is, so why should I read it? There's no reason for me to read it. This is not the yellow press. This is not like a fairy tale or whatsoever. It should be a scientific work. That is in line here also, not only about the question is missing, but the importance is not clear. So if you just formulate a question for the sake of a question without providing a context and the evidence, so the question is justified, this is equally lost. When the paper length, we see it in many cases that the journal sets a limit, say 8,000 words, some say 5,000 words, some 12,000 words. Check it in advance. If you exceed the usual standard length by a third or even by more, nobody reads it. So it goes back to nice advice, please shorten the paper or make it longer. It depends on what has been done. Here we see it, this is just a repetition. When you see about the scope, about the sample sizes for empirical works, but that's what I said earlier, the sample size is a criterion for desk reject if you do not justify and do not explain why you have a small sample. If you clearly indicate and say, yes, I'm well aware, it's indicative, it's not representative, and so on, but we can use it as exploratory work, I'm happy, I accept that. But if you say, and now I have the big findings based on econometrics, and you do econometric analysis and you have a sample of 50 or 100, at that moment, okay, forget it. Doesn't work, doesn't make sense. Be aware of your own limitation and bring it out. Only providing a model or a concept without running a test, or at least without proposing how a test could be done, is the same. We are not looking for papers which only say, here is my theoretical model, which is coming to my mind from my last holidays. Take the time and write down an approach how to test this model. The same here, as I said earlier, number of papers already received. When you have the abstracts and these things, if you write the technical stuff not in line with the guidelines, so obviously you didn't read it, title, issue, when we have the scope thing and the conclusions. In the conclusions, yes, indeed, it's true. In the conclusions, often we see it. It goes like the same like the abstract. Nowadays we find blah blah blah, and you only repeat common wisdom. In the conclusions, you should definitely come and say, and here, by the way, we had a research question, here's my answer. So bring something different than the common wisdom whatsoever it is nowadays and currently. So these are the 20 top reasons for desk rejecting these papers right away. Now, what we have here is, I have an example here of an paper, the abstract. So this is a real case. This is, I think last week it was. I would like to ask you, just read the abstract, just read it and think about why do you think it was desk rejected? And when I look at it now, I find even more than I had yesterday before when it was the case. So I see it from your observations, from your responses, bingo. Nothing else I find here. What came to my mind now here, even when I look at the keywords, innovation system, roles, 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 what roles? So this is a keyword. Imagine when you use the search engine and you are not looking for a keyword called roles. What is this? It's absolutely unclear. So what do we find here? It starts in technical terms, pretty simple. Okay, regional innovation systems are RIS. Okay, it's a risk. Should not be the case here. Yes, Oksana, is pretty unclear. When we come here and we say for innovation policy experts. What? For experts. So what innovation policy experts? I don't care here. I don't want to know that in the abstract. What for? What is the message? What do you want to tell me about that? When you see here the findings contribute to innovation studies, management theory, and public policy. This is a little bit over ambitious. So this is my immediate impression. Wow, may tell us how the world goes. So this paper, these findings contribute to studies which explain how the world is run. A little bit too much. Oops, yes. And then here you state also about these experts. Yeah, this is what I see right away. I don't want to know that here because my first question is, who is an expert? Here it doesn't say what for, the topic is too broad, an expert, yes, I'm an expert as well, but not in that, so it can be everything. There is no message, no clear at all. And then here you have something, most prominent roles are co-knowledge, co-creator. Yeah, what do they mean? So what is that? What is that? The most prominent roles of actors, brokers, co-creators, supporters could be people engaged in the stock exchanges now. We are talking about a fully different topic. So what? What is the meaning? No message. So why should anybody read this crazy paper? All right. Now a few more thoughts about the impressions for those editors, guys. We take it here when before you start submitting the paper. We have it in many cases, but even before the submission, people, potential authors or authors, sending letters to me, and they ask me, I'm writing a paper on that and that and that. Is the paper in the scope? Would you like to publish it? First of all, I always respond, but I tell them only one thing. Please read the journal website. So many of my colleagues don't even respond to that. But that makes it like an escalation. Second, they approach us and they ask us, will you take it, will you treat it personally? All the journals have editors, associate editors, usually around 10 to 15 or 20. So it does not make any sense to ask an editor, will you take a the paper, or do you give it to a colleague for handling the paper? You will, first of all, we will never disclose who does that. There's a point where we are not transparent anymore. And second, why should you care about that? Because it's your friend or whatever it is. So we try to avoid that. You have standard question, how long will the review take and why does it take so long? Plus, the question comes, who might be the reviewers? I am not saying who are the reviewers, it's blinded review. So the reviewers usually don't know who is the author and vice versa, just to make it really in the objective way. The worst thing, the worst question I experienced was here, are there other similar papers? Honestly, there were 3 guys independently sending that question to me within 2 months, and I was wondering, what are they doing? Why do they ask me such a thing? So this is like, this is my reaction at that moment right away immediately. During the submission, you submit a paper with 20 topics. Seriously, when I receive a paper which is entitled Industry 4.0, blah, 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 I don't care. I don't care. There are so many things about Industry 4.0. This is a nice yellow press topic, but in scientific terms, the times are gone. We have new titles, we have new buzzwords and keywords, so we can change it easily. You've got really incremental results, if you have results at all. There I find, why should I bother the reviewers? The reviewers will hate me for that, and they will say, why should I read that? Strange. When I see the paper and you don't describe the methodology properly, I think, how did you do it? What is you have to hide? We had the case recently, a large data set, econometric analysis, everything nice. And then I responded to the author and said, okay, we have to reject it because you do not indicate the year of origin of the data set. And the author said, yes, it's a data set dating back to 2010. I said, you should have written that in the paper. You can resubmit it in a different shape, but I promise if you have a data set which is 15 years old now almost, it will not be accepted because it's absolutely out of date. But if you don't integrate it in the submission, the question I ask is, what do you have to hide? What is that? And if you have no research question or hypothesis, I simply ask myself, why should I read it? Why? It is like a consulting report or like a fairy tale or whatever it is. Yes, but what is the reason for me spending my time on reading that? So with such a question, a nice provocative thing, you make me interested in reading that, and then I'm happy. But just make me curious, make me aware of it. After the submission, So it was before submission. After submission, you receive the manuscript ID, and you might, after 2 or 3 weeks, send an email to the editor and ask, I see in the system, it's still with the editor. It's not under review yet. And then you ask, when will you start the review process? And why does the review process take so long? I think at that moment, leave me alone. This is not your business. I handle the paper as I decide it's appropriate. I do it as fast as I can, but I have to spend some time on that. And if I don't have time, anything. When you ask me why the review takes so long, I will not respond. I simply say, it doesn't make any sense of what you're telling me here. I cannot push the editors. I need these guys. And I'm acting as reviewer on my own many, many times. And if the editor comes to me and says, please hurry up with your review, I tell them, either you leave me alone, I send the review as soon as I'm ready, or you simply take somebody else. So the reviewers are in a stronger position than the editors. The editors cannot do much about that. And if you push the editors to speed up the review process, sorry, they have no real chance and no real choice doing that. And they have to lose a lot because they need the reviewers in a year or 2 years' time again. Then we have the revisions, and the revisions, I'll show you an example in a minute. The revisions is a crucial story, a very crucial story. It means that you submit a revision and you do not include the response to reviewers, or you don't make it explicitly clear how you responded to the reviewers' comments and remarks. Or second, you do not specify, or they do not have a specific, clear, identifiable response to these reviewers. My first impression here is clearly, so you don't respond to the reviewers. I simply take it and I throw it away as it is. I do not open a second review round. Why? The reviewers, and when I'm a reviewer doing the same, first I look at my initial comments, which is usually, say, 4 weeks or half a year ago. I forget about that, so I need to be reminded. And then I want to see that you took it serious and that you responded. And then, if you don't respond to my comments, I wonder, did you read my review? Did you read it? I insist that you read it, and I insist that you take it serious because it's my time and I'm not paid for that. So it's honestly a lot about showing the respect to these guys. Now, what we see here is that the authors, even here after the second round of review, they always come and respond. Yes, it's 2 different reviewers, and they each time start their response to the reviews. We appreciate your consideration. So, what is the point here? I'm the editor. First, before sending back to the reviewers, I have to read them. And usually you come up with, say, 10, 20 comments by reviewers. And each time you have this first sentence, we appreciate your consideration. This is nice. This is very nice. Your response letter to the reviewers, you have an initial first sentence. In the first sentence, say you appreciate these contents, these comments. But don't repeat it over and over and over again. This is one. And second, we see it then in the text in many cases. I'll show you some examples in a minute. We see it in many cases that the authors say the reviewer is absolutely wrong because it's like that, and that, and that. Do not teach the reviewer. Do not. Except if the reviewer says this is wrong and you should do it differently, tell him it's a good idea to revise it a bit and that you revise it accordingly. But don't tell the reviewer and the editor that they have no idea. Don't do it. They have more power in that. Now, we have it here, some nice examples. The reviewer says, give references to other studies, and the author response is, the references are provided. So what is the comment with what I think at that moment? So what's you doing here? You tell us references are provided. No, be specific and tell me which references are provided. Make it clear, not only come here and say it's done. Then we had a reviewer saying you cannot take mean value by variable, binary variables. This makes sense. And then the response is, but SPSS, we used SPSS, and that was the result. Cool. At that moment, you give me a lecture in using SPSS. I don't want to see a lecture about SPSS. You should focus here on the content, and you should not use the excuse, I'm using a software, and the software delivers the following to me. To me, the first impression is you don't even know what the meaning of the variable is which SPSS delivers to. The other side, you can do it the perfect way. Here, the reviewer said there's a small share of responses, the results are very modest. Okay, and the other says we also underline the necessity to go for a broad scale survey and things like that. So that here, what happens, you make it clear, you got the point, you understand, and you say and you admit this is not the model explaining the word. And then I see that as editor in the reviewer response letter, and I say, cool, they took it serious, and they come back. That means either the paper is now at a level we can accept it, or I give it to another review round. If the comments, if the feedback is like that here, it's either right away desk reject, or in some cases you are lucky in the second review round. So and then here another example. I don't need to read it out. They also came here and they say they clearly refer to what's being said here, and then we reference it and they say what did they do there. What more is if you have such responses, this is cool, that guides me clearly. We have cases where the authors come and say, here's such a wonderful statement, plus copy and paste of section 2 at page 5. So the letter, the response letter comes to 10 or 15 pages. And you have the same text inside the paper. This is a nightmare to read and to understand. Don't forget, the editors handle many papers in a day and in a week, and we are doing that free of charge. Even seriously, editorial duties are not included in the employment contracts with Higher School of Economics. So I do not receive any additional minute in a day which I can spend here. I perceive that this is part of my job, this is part of the academic job. But in formal terms, we are paid for doing research and not with administrative stuff as we have it here. It's my pleasure so far telling and sharing a little bit of my experience from these journals, and it gives me one idea. I don't even know how many years I'm doing it now. What I should do is I should have a look at these systems and the portals, because it usually counts how many papers have been handled. I cannot tell you how many papers I had, but it's definitely 4 digits, definitely, yes, in total. So I think that gives quite some nice, I hope, sincerely hope I could help you a little bit, inspire you a little bit, and most important, support you a bit in submitting a paper. And I remember when I submitted my first manuscript, I was very nervous. With portals meant so many things to fill in, and no idea how to write what and how to write a letter to the editor, etc. This is learning by doing. And don't be too disappointed. Don't get depressed. Don't take a bottle of vodka only because the paper has been rejected. So many papers are rejected. On the other hand, also keep calm, stay down to earth after your paper has been accepted. It's always a nice reason, and it's a good thing to be happy about it, but it's not a thing to have a big party with another bottle of vodka, despite the weather is bad. So this is wonderful if you get it. If you don't get it, always keep in mind, I'm not the only one. There are 9 or 10 other persons also rejected. before one is the lucky one being published. It's a learning by doing. This is always the case, and allow and open your mindset towards reviewers' comments and remarks. Take it serious. Do not consider this is a personal offense. They want to tell you how stupid you are. Of course, we are not so intelligent. Of course, we take it serious. And I always consider these remarks. This is a little bit okay. We can still improve it. There's always kind of approval and improvement potential. So take it in that light. It makes your life easier and hopefully more exciting.